And what's going on YouTube? It's your boy Jail and we live, baby. We live. You did what I'm saying? Straight to it, gang. We in the building with another reaction video. You know what I'm saying? We going crazy. It's another Jordan Peterson video and we gonna get straight into it. You know how that we do.
What's the difference between men and women? Well, how do they differ? Well, the first thing we might observe is that if you look at personality differences between pre-pubescent boys and girls, they're not very large. Boys and girls don't differ in terms of their trait neuroticism, for example. What happens is that when puberty kicks in, women's trait neuroticism rises and it stays higher than men for the rest of their life. And this is why you see this reflected in the different kinds of psychopathology that beset the two sexes. So men are overrepresented in alcoholism, drug abuse, antisocial personality, and a host of learning disorders as well as attention deficit disorder. And women are overrepresented in depression and anxiety, primarily. That seems to be tightly associated with higher levels of trait neuroticism, because maybe it's, if you're at the 95th percentile or higher, let's say, in trait neuroticism, there isn't much difference between that and being somewhat prone to depression and anxiety. And because the curves overlap, the curves aren't identical, the normal distributions aren't identical for men and women, you tilt the one to the right, women's curve to the right towards higher levels of neuroticism, you go out and you look for the person in 20 who has the highest levels of negative emotion. It's much more likely to be female than male. Okay, so let's see if we can figure out why. So I'm going to tell you some things, basic differences between men and women, and you can tell me what you think about it if you agree or disagree. Okay, first, size differential emerges between men and women at puberty, right? Because boys and girls are roughly the same size and roughly the same strength. But men get bigger at puberty when the testosterone kicks in, and more importantly, not only do they get taller and heavier, but their upper body strength is much higher. And that's a real issue for combat, because human beings punch. There's other animals that do that. Kangaroos do that too, eh? So we're not the only people that punch, but we have clubs on the ends of our arms. And so that's how we defend ourselves. And so if you have a lot of upper body strength, especially across the shoulders, and you're heavier, then you can step into the punch and it's a lot more devastating. Now, it is the case that if you look at the statistics for physical altercations in marriage, women attack their husbands more often than husbands attack their wives. Why is that? Well, let's assume that there isn't any reason other than both people in a relationship can get upset, and the women know that if they hit their husbands, nothing's really going to happen.
Extremes, bro.
Men use the image of female perfection to motivate themselves. And that's exactly right. That's precisely what they do. You see that in the Tom Sawyer story.
Yeah, let me say, man, that's at the extremes. That's not to say that men, because, when women in the comments be like, well, every dude I ever been with, he put his hands on me, da-da-da-da-da. We talking about at the extremes, of course. There's a bunch of women because you gotta look at you gotta understand overlap and you gotta understand overlap, right? And then the Pareto distribution. It basically, you can do a Pareto distribution for anything, and there's overlap. Men and women are basically whooping each other's ass, but at the extremes, you dig what I'm saying? And in this specific context of a marriage, women out here putting their hands on ninjas way more than men are, putting their hands on a woman. Like, you dig what I'm saying? Let's keep going.
So Tom Sawyer is about 12 years old, and he's still hanging around with his friends like Huck Finn. And this girl moves across the street, Becky, and she comes out, and he's struck by her for the first time in his life. Something's changed. And the first thing he does is hop up on a picket fence and show off and balance in front of her. And he's saying, well, look at me, look at me. He's like the male bowerbird building something beautiful so the female will approve of it. And it's motivation, and that's something that I think modern women don't really understand about men.
Man, Dave Chappelle said it best, bro. Men don't buy Porsches because they like them. They buy them because we know we can bag you with it. You dig what I'm saying? Y'all should go watch that, watch that bit. But, it's funny, real funny, for sure. Got you.
They don't understand that, at least to the degree that males are uncorrupted and not bitter because of being rejected, they're doing everything they can to kneel before the eternal image of the feminine and try to make themselves worthy. That's the chivalry story, right? That's what you should encourage in your partner. So out of chaos emerges this first form. It's the feminine form. It's partly the form that represents novelty as such. So, and on one hand it's promise, on the other hand it's threat. That you wouldn't believe, and I don't know, because I don't know I don't understand the situation with women as well as I understand the situation with men, obviously, being a man. I don't know if women have any idea how paralyzing they are to, especially young men. A very large number of my clinical clients, but also young men I've talked to in general, are absolutely terrified of women because they're terrified of being rejected. And the terror exists in precise proportion to the attraction to the woman, which is a horrible paradoxical situation to be in. It's often why men make such fools of themselves in front of women that they're attracted to. It's because, first of all, they don't see the woman that they're attracted to, because what the hell do they know about her? They don't see her as an individual. They see her as the manifestation of a judgmental ideal. And
that's a fact. You dig what I'm saying? That's such a bar. You feel what I'm saying? Like that's why you can see somebody, like, and it's for men and women, but that's why you can see somebody that you don't even know, but you don't like them. It's like, does that make any sense to you? Like, they probably ain't done nothing to you, ain't said nothing to you, ain't even looked at you, but you the minute your eyes lock with the, you know, with the physical representation of this person, it triggers something in you. And that's psychological. So this person is literally a walking representation of something that has triggered you traumatically. You dig what I'm saying? So there's something called it's a union term, and it's the animus and the anima. You know what I mean? And I'm gonna get into that more probably a little bit after the video for sure. But let's keep it popping.
And it's only in establishing the relationship with the actual woman that they can start differentiating between the judgmental ideal and the actual individual woman. And that also requires a sacrifice. And the sacrifice is, you never can have an ideal woman. So to have a relationship with any woman, you have to sacrifice the relationship with the ideal woman. And you have to see the individual woman and separate her from the ideal. And that's the same thing that happens to the hero in Sleeping Beauty, right? He sees the evil queen who actually turns into the dragon of chaos. And it's not until he can defeat her that he can establish a relationship with the actual princess. And that's exactly the case. I had one of my clients who ran this.
Yeah, so what that means in essence is you gotta kill the ideal, you know, or the pathology that manifests itself, that is literally contending and confronting your ability to genuinely, like, get to know who's genuinely in front of you, into such that you can have you have the capacity of being able to have a relationship that lasts, you know, longevity. So like that has to do with like self-sabotage. What causes people to self-sabotage? Because they haven't slayed the proverbial dragon, if you will, of like how they perceive certain things. And that's even, and you can take what he just said and apply it to anything, business, you know, relational dynamics between even family and all of that. You did what I'm saying. Let's keep it popping. This man's spitting.
Men's group, which was quite interesting. One of the things they had the initiates do, which was very intelligent, was to go out and ask 50 women in one day for their phone numbers. Why? Politely, properly, you know. It was a game, but it wasn't a stupid game. And the idea was, get over your fear of rejection. And how do you do that? By encountering it continually and continually and continually, so that you're no longer paralyzed by this. The degree to which the terrible part of the world manifests itself in your life is proportionate to how insufficient you are. And we don't know the full extent of that. If you got your act together completely, maybe all the suffering would disappear from your life. Or at least maybe all the unbearable suffering. And maybe all the suffering or the unbearable suffering from the lives of people around you too. And you already know that because there are people that you'll go to in a crisis that you can rely on, and you know they'll help you. And you wonder what the world would be like if you were like that and everyone else was like that too. We'd have a lot fewer crises. And the ones that we do have would be a lot more manageable. And so when people say, well, why is the world so rife with suffering? One answer to that is because we're not yet what we could be. And at least that's an answer that we have some control over, right? You're not going to negotiate directly with Mother Nature, but you might be able to put yourself together a little bit and see if that works. At least it's under your control. Well, here's the decomposition of the fundamental archetype. The dragon of chaos differentiates, on the one hand, into the feminine. That's the unknown. And the feminine differentiates further into the negative feminine and the positive feminine. The negative feminine is the reason for witch hunts. It's the reason for, you know, there's a whole group online called Men Going Their Own Way, MGTOW. That's a very interesting group to go study. There's lots of them. I don't know how many of them there are, and most of them are older. Many of them are men who've been through a particularly horrifying divorce for one reason or another, and they've had enough of women. So they tell the young men that they're teaching, never have a permanent relationship, never share your territory with a woman, never share your possessions, make sure you never live together, and don't stay with one long enough to enter a common law relationship because you will be stripped of everything that you have. The female has been manifested in their life only as the negative archetype, and they've got that confused with all women. And that's partly, you got to ask yourself, if you know the mythological stories, maybe if you made the right sacrifices you wouldn't have so much trouble with women. It's a good question to ask yourself first. And I would also say, if you're a woman who has trouble with men, or you're a man who has trouble with women, it's not the women and it's not the men, it's you. Because the women are telling you what's wrong with you, and the men are telling you what's wrong with you. And if you don't listen, then it's you. It's either you or all men. Well, that's easy, it's all men. Well, that's certainly how it's played out in the world right now. It's like, no, it's not all men. You can be, by definition, and it's not all women, that's for sure. I don't want to have anything to do with women. It's like you're a pathetic weasel. That's the same statement.
Oh my, bro. God, JP be spitting, bro. Like the way he put stuff really just smack, bro. Like, oh my God, the way he be putting stuff smack. Some key things to understand. Neuroticism, first and foremost, on this channel, we gonna give definitions of what words mean. You dig what I'm saying? So we learn together and we can understand and really start to conceptualize the context of what folk be saying. But neuroticism in psychology and development, it's a broad personality trait dimension representing the degree to which a person experiences the world as a distressing, threatening, and unsafe place. Each individual can be positioned somewhere on this personality dimension between extreme poles, right? So perfect emotional stability versus complete emotional chaos. High neurotic individuals tend to be I don't know how to say that word. Labial, that is subject to frequent changing emotions. Bipolar is what I say. Anxious, tense, and withdrawn. Individuals who are low in neuroticism tend to be content, confident, and stable. The latter report fewer physical and psychological problems and less stress than do highly neurotic individuals. So people who always got something going on, always tripping, always tweaking, their high in neuroticism, like they have incredible distress and all of these different things. Heavily that comes from, it can come from like fragility. So, there's something called anti-fragility concept, you feel what I'm saying, which is the ability to be resilient, when life throws, when you come into contact with chaos, even if you're broken, you learn from it such that you can come back stronger. That's what we get the idiom, what don't kill you makes you stronger, but then there's people who just, as a result of fear, don't even contend. So they're cowardly, and as a result, or they've taken so many repeated L's that psychologically, like they're imprisoned, and they sort of manifest, they manifest all of their greatest fears because they've taken so many of the same kind of blows. You dig what I'm saying? And instead of really dealing with the information that's coming from those blows, they victimize themselves. The mind is very interesting in that it wants to save you, even if it's like still gonna keep you punitive. It's trying to save you and protect you the best possible way that it can with what it knows. And that's why, to be enlightened is to get knowledge, right? Which illuminates dark places in your mind that are not conscious, right? And brings your subconscious into the conscious, you dig? So that's what it means to awaken, is to awaken all of the parts of you that you're not even aware about, you dig? That's where your greatest potential lies, is in the dark waters. But those dark waters are dark, so it's terrifying. So that's neuroticism. Now again, like, he's going in, if and I can story time on a dude who I knew who was, getting close to me, cause I model, and you know, I make music, and you know, so I'm heavily tapped into, you know, the social night scene and nightlife and stuff like that. And he just saw that I was good with women, and he sucked with women. So it's like, all right, let me get tapped in with bruh, and you know, maybe I can learn a thing or two. And it's literally all he would ever talk about. So he's literally, but he was obsessed with it. He dig, and he would go out on dates with really fine girls, but he would just be petrified. Like, yo, what do I say? What do I do? Like, how do I escalate? All of these different things. And you know, the relationships that he would get in wouldn't really last that long. So it was a frustration for him. Like, why is he experiencing this? And you know, Jordan talks about a lot, man. Like, when people ask, how do I bag the baddest girl? That's the wrong question. It's like, bro, how do you become somebody desirable is the better question, because it's like, you know, there's nothing you can say. You can say the right thing, but if you're not like what a woman want, it don't matter. You dig what I'm saying? So it's like, you got to become something worth having. That's the simplest way to say that. You dig? So on this channel, you know, we'll still give game on how you can execute better, but the idea is to become, you know, like, how does a tree, you know, that'd be like an acorn saying, how do I bear fruit? It's like, become a tree. You know, like Kabi Lime would do. Come on, bro. You dig? It's kind of futile. You're playing a game of futility if you're an acorn, and then you talking about how do I bear fruit? Like, you can't bear nothing right now, bro. And if that's frustrating, if that hurts, then it should inspire your ass to go down into the ground and grow, become something. You dig? That's real. Yeah, and stop. You know, stop finding silos that empower you in your frustration, in your offense. You know, that's some cowardly shit, for real. You know what I'm saying? Like he said, man, you're a weasel, for real. You just finding people who all share your pain, and y'all all getting together and talking about woe is me. You know what I'm saying? You ain't really no different than chatty patty women who just be talking about how, you know, how ninjas ain't shit. So for sure, you know, last thing I'll say is that women have a tilt towards neuroticism. Not to say that there aren't women who are cool, calm, and collected, but most women experience a distress, and it's because, from a biological standpoint, and then also to, I would say, societal propaganda, they're weaker vessels, in a sense, like, from their physiology, like, they have a lot more risks, you know, like, if things don't align for them, you know, they're disenfranchised. So as a result, like, there's a lot more chaotic elements that you know, they'll be dealing with. You know, men also too have this as well, but because we you know, from a physiological standpoint, we stronger and things of that nature. We don't have a tilt to high neuroticism, you know. However, though, I think in modern day, men are suffering than a mug. I think we're suffering than a mug, and I'll probably get on that more, because we have to create our value, even though we inherently do have value. And I want to say that's my belief personally. You know, I think we have inherent value, because you can't even manifest anything if it's not inherent, in my belief. You can like, skills is one thing, you can go and acquire skills, but there's a case for, like, intuitiveness. You know what I'm saying? For some, like, everybody has a certain level of intuitiveness, so an aptitude to be able to do something well, that in and of itself, you know, proves that you have a value, you know. So F what you heard, you know what I'm saying? I'm telling you, for my brothers, y'all is valuable. And that's really where it starts. You don't become valuable now because you got, like, you know, like a Pokemon, you know, you're level 9, or, you know, or Dragon Ball Z, you level 9,000. You dig? You valuable purely because you have the potential to aspire to, you know, to get to that level. You dig what I'm saying? So yeah. But, you know, that's where I'm, you know, I think I'll stop it there, man. You know, like I said, like, share, leave a comment. You dig what I'm saying? We finna go crazy. I'm telling you, this finna be the best channel on YouTube as far as reaction goes, because I'm gonna give you the real, I'm gonna give you hard insights. You dig what I'm saying? And we're gonna get into you know, everything like that. So peace, love, and purpose, y'all. It's Jail.